Hey, what's up guys, it's DarkArmedDuelist and today we're doing some cubic test hands. So without further ado guys, don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, hit the bell there so you can become part of the notification squad, and definitely check out the Patreon down in the description below for all those awesome rewards. Like getting your name description in a single video, getting assigned cards in the mail, and even getting to request a deck profile every single month you're a patron. So without further ado, let's get straight on into this. So this deck is a really amazing OTK deck that can summon out a crazy powerful boss monster, Crimson Nova, to help you go in for game. That's what the entire deck is based around, is getting to your copy of Crimson Nova and just attacking your opponent to OTK with that amazing boss monster that's super easy to summon to your side of the field by just revealing any 3 cubic cards in your hand with different names, which is really easy to do in this build because we play a bunch of different names in this deck. And if you guys would like to check out the deck profile, as always, it is down in the description down below with any test hand video. But this deck is super cheap to be able to pick up, which is another plus about this build. But you guys know it's dad rule number 1 that you've got to pile shuffle the deck or you run the risk of bricking. So let's go ahead and see what we can do for our first test hand, because this deck is crazy powerful and this is a going second build, but we're going to go ahead and just play it like we're going first because there is some really cool plays that you can actually pull off if you do go first. So let's go ahead and see what we can do. So we're going to go ahead and draw into a copy of our Cubic King, a copy of Yugioh, that's also a really good going first card, a copy of Dojo, Dojo's also really good, Foolish Burial Goods, and a copy of a Summoner Monk. So this has actually got some really neat plays. I'm going to show you guys a really cool play to be able to go first with this build. So what you can actually do with this particular hand, if you're going first, is we already have 2 cubic names in the hand that we're going to reveal, really 3 because we're not going to use this card. So we already have our 3 cubic names in hand, but we do have a way to get a rank 4 on the field, which is why I play the copies of Bagooska in the deck, which will slow the opponent down. So we're just going to normal summon out the copy of Summoner Monk, switch it to defense position, and use the effect of the Summoner Monk to be able to discard our Foolish Burial Goods. And then once we do, we can special summon out our copy of our Dojo from the deck. If we do special summon out the copy of Dojo from the deck, you can then use its ability to be able to send any cubic card you want from your deck to the graveyard, which is a copy of Cubic Karma. Again, this is a going second build, so I'm just showing you guys what you can do going first to ensure that you're going to get your OTK on the follow-up turn. So at this point, we're going to banish the copy of Cubic Karma, which can only search monsters, which is a little bit unfortunate, but that's totally fine because we're just trying to get to our boss monster, Crimson Nova. Now, the really cool thing is we already have all 3 names that we need in hand of different cubic cards in our hand with different names to be able to reveal to summon the copy of Crimson Nova. But we're actually going to hold it in our hand and not summon it yet. Because what we're going to do is just do a very simple play by overlaying both of these 2 monsters to make a copy of Bagooska on our side of the field and pass over to the opponent. I know that looks like a very simple play, but a lot of players have a hard time outing this card, and they're going to use a lot of resources to out this card that they're not going to have when you summon out this card to your side of the field, because they're going to use all the resources to deal with Bagooska. So if your opponent cannot out Bagooska, then you're basically going to win, which is really cool in the going first scenario. Another thing is if you don't have your copy of Summoner Monk, you can just set a copy of Yugioh because it cannot be destroyed by battle, and you can just set this card to your side of the field and back it up with a couple of other cards, which is really cool going first. Something I don't like to do when going first is just normal summon a copy of Dojo, because it leaves yourself open for a lot of plays, especially cards like Utopia Double, to be able to just hit with the Utopia Double and you lose the game, which is a really unfortunate play, but we can normal summon it on the next turn and get more cards out on our side of the field. So with this particular play, you just throw the Bagooska in defense position. It's a very defensive play, and you just wait on the opponent to do their thing. So, if they can't out the copy of the Bagooska, we're going to draw during the follow-up turn, which is going to be a copy of Raigeki. That is amazing. At this point, we're going to detach a material from the Bagooska during the standby phase, switch this card to attack position, which has a really cool ability that once returned during your standby phase, detach material of this card if you can't, destroy it. And if this card is in attack position, it cannot be destroyed by your opponent's card effects. So at this point, what we're going to do is just drop Raigeki. We're going to destroy all of our opponent's monsters on the field, giving us a wide open path as long as we can do 5,000 points of damage, which we can because we have Bagooska on the field. They don't have any monsters, so we're just going to reveal all 3 of our cubic names in hand and special summon out our copy of Crimson Nova. Now at this point, you're going to normal summon out your copy of Duza. You're not going to get into Nibiru territory, which is really cool because this is probably the only summons you're really going to do. So at this point, what we're going to do is we're going to send a copy of Cubic Karma to the graveyard, which then we can banish, because it's actually, the cool thing is it's not once per turn, but this is on the next turn after our first turn. So what we're going to do is banish the copy of the Cubic Karma to be able to search an additional monster from our deck to our hand, which I'm probably just going to search out a copy of Duza from the deck to the hand for follow-up, just in case we don't OTK, but we're going to go ahead and shuffle up the deck. Now, the really cool thing about this is you might not see all the damage on board with this particular field, but I do. So what we're going to do is we're going to swing in for 3k, we're going to swing in for 5,100, and then we're going to use the effect also of Duza to boost itself up that during either player's turn, if a monster was sent to the graveyard this turn, then you can activate the ability this card can actually gain 200 attack points for each monster with different names in the grave. So you could boost it up to 1,800, but the 200 points is not going to be that big of a deal. And we're going to swing in for an additional 16, which is going to be a total of 67. Now you might be thinking, well, my opponent still has 1,300 life points because this is only 67 on board. You win your turn, you win. So we're going to go ahead and pass over to the opponent, and once we do, the copy of Crimson Nova will go off, and our opponent will actually take 3,000 points of damage along with us because of Crimson Nova's effect. Both of us taking 3,000 points of damage, and we win the game. Because this card does 3,000 points of burn damage, essentially guaranteeing that extra attack, so you win the game. Which is why I like going into Baguska in the very first turn if we do get pushed to go first, because then we can break boards with cards like Regeki and stuff like that if we need to, especially if they out the copy of Baguska and we draw into like a Lightning Storm or something like that. So that's it for the first test hand, guys. Let's go into the next one. That's basic combos of the deck. It's very simple to be able to play Cubics, which is really nice. I love this deck a lot because it's a really good deck to just hand somebody who's never played Yu-Gi-Oh before and just show them this deck and be like, here, normal summon Duza, send Cubic Karma, search Crimson Nova, reveal 3 names, summon Crimson Nova to your side of the field, and then just start swinging with Crimson Nova. That's pretty much what you do with this deck, and it's really cool to be able to do, especially when you combo your copy of Crimson Nova with Cubic Wave, double his attack, reduce the attack of another monster by half, and then Vjom can't be destroyed by battle, which is a defensive card. That's basically the way you play Cubics. It's really fun to be able to play. I love this deck. It's very simple, but it's a really fun deck to play. So let's go ahead and shuffle it up and see what we can do for the next test hand. You can make it a little more complicated if you want to with the plays, but it's really not necessary. So let's go ahead and see what we can do for the next one. So we're going to go ahead and draw into a copy of Cubic Wave. There it is. Lightning Storm, a copy of Summoner Monk, your copy of Crimson Nova. All we need is like, what, one more name in hand, and we can go ahead and do it because we have the Summoner Monk and a Vjom. We have everything we need. This is why I say this is a going second build, and I'll show you guys really quickly why. If it was going second, we would draw into a copy of Durama, which is going to give us all the names that we need in the hand to be able to deal with our opponent, deal with their back row, and once you do, you can activate this if you want to in your hand, then summon out Summoner Monk, discard this, summon your copy of Vjom, or not Vjom, but Duza, send Karma, get another copy of another card, summon this, half the attack of something, swing twice, and you win. That's pretty much what you would do if you were going second, but since we're going first, I'll show you guys exactly what to do with this hand. So what we're going to do is kind of similar to the first one. We're going to normal summon out Summoner Monk. We're going to discard the copy of Lightning Storm because we're going to have a monster on the field. And we're just going to set up kind of like we did last turn. We're going to summon out a copy of Duza. Duza's going to go off. Duza's going to send Karma to the graveyard. We're going to banish Karma from the graveyard, which is going to give us a search of a monster. And once we do get that search of a monster, it doesn't really matter as long as it's any monster like a copy of a Duza or something. You can basically have all 3 names in your hand. So at this point, we're just going to overlay these two again, make a copy of Baguska in defense, and then once you have the copy of Baguska in defense, you're just going to pass over to the opponent, let them do their thing. They're going to pass back over to us. If they can't out the copy of Baguska, we're going to draw into a copy of Unification. Not as crazy as a Regeki, but we still have the copy of the Crimson Nova. But that's very important when you have Wave and Nova in hand. You don't want to destroy your opponent's monsters because the copy of Wave actually should target a cubic monster you control and one face-up monster your opponent controls. And you actually double the attack of your monster and then half the attack of the opponent's monster, letting you have a easy target to OTK with. So We're going to just go ahead and detach a material from the copy of Duza. Then we can just, or not Duza, but we're going to detach the Duza from the copy of the Bagooska. And then we're going to switch Bagooska to attack position. The opponent's probably got 1, maybe 2 monsters in defense position. We're going to normal summon out the copy of Duza. Duza goes off and sends a cubic card from our deck to the graveyard, which we're just going to send, say, a copy of... You can send Karma to the graveyard. Usually we always just send Karma to the graveyard. And you can grab a copy of Crimson Nova, which is really funny just to grab another copy of Crimson Nova. Because we do have 3 additional names in the hand, which is just really nice. And this card is super cool. If you guys have not read this card is just amazing. It has a crazy power effect and it cannot be normal summoned or set. It must be special summoned from your hand by revealing 3 cubic cards in your hand with different names. It cannot be special summoned by other ways. It's unaffected by other monster effects activated whose original attack is 3,000 or less, and when this attacking card destroys a monster in battle, you can activate this effect to be able to attack again during that battle phase, and during the end phase, each player takes 3,000 points of damage, and you can only use this effect of this card once per turn, but the special summon effect is not once per turn. So you can actually do some really cool things with this card. So what we're going to do is reveal our 3 names, special summon your copy of your Crimson Nova, special summon a copy of Crimson Nova, and then you can activate your copy of Cubic Wave on this one, doubling the attack of this one and dropping the attack of an opponent's monster down, which is just really nice to be able to do for us. We can then swing into 1 monster, 2 monster, 3 monster, 4, and then swing directly for the last 6k damage. And if we can't do all the damage right there, we can just overlay these 2 dudes right here. And then once you overlay your copies of your Crimson Nova, if you get them both on your side of the field, you can actually make your copy of Gustav Max, detach a material from this card, and then do 2,000 points of damage, which is going to go ahead and just end the game. And if you can't do it there, you can make a copy of Juggernaut Lieb. And if you need to attack with Juggernaut Lieb on the follow-up turn, you can then just basically make a copy of Zeus and have a board wipe as well if you need to go there, which can be options for you guys if you need to make Zeus in the deck. And that's how you usually do it. Or you make a copy of Zeus like right here on top of your copy of Bagooska, which is kind of cool to be able to do if you need to, which is really nice because you have that option. So let's go ahead and do another test hand and see what we can do with the next one. So we're going to go ahead and shuffle it up and see what we can do for our next test hand. As you guys can see, deck's pretty simple to play. Summon Crimson Nova, just go in for game with it, which is really nice. If you get that Cubic Wave, it's all over. If your opponent puts any monster on the field, which is hilarious and just super fun to be able to do. Well, let's go ahead and shuffle it up and see what we can do for our next one. So we're going to go ahead and give it a quick little pile shuffle, or not a pile shuffle, but a riffle shuffle, and we're going to see what we can do. So we're going to draw into a copy of Pot of Extravagance. That's pretty good to dig into the deck. Cubic Wave. Now we just need a way to get to our copy of Crimson Nova. And the cool thing is we play 3 Crimson Novas in the main deck. You also play 3 copies of Duza, which can send Karma to the grave, and you play 3 copies of Karma and 3 copies of Summoner Monk. So you basically have, or Foolish Burial Goods, excuse me. So you have like 9 ways to get to your copy of Crimson Nova in an opening hand, which is hilarious to be able to do, because it's super easy to get to. So we're going to go ahead and then draw our rest of our hand to get an Endure Doom. This is just basically a name. There's Karma, and then there's another wave. So we don't have a way to get to it, but we do have the copy of Pot of Extravagance. So let's go ahead and shuffle up our extract and banish 6 from our extract. This is a little bit of a weird hand. So let's go ahead and shuffle it up. But with every deck, you run the risk of breaking when you don't pile shuffle. So let's go ahead and do 3 and do 6. And let's see what we hit off of that. Probably not that big of a deal. Yeah, this isn't too bad. We still have a copy of Gustav Max. We have 1 Zeus left. We have 1 Juggernaut Lieb, and we have 2 Bagooskas. We're totally fine. So let's go ahead and draw our 2 cards. If it's a Crimson Nova, we already got 3 names in hand, and we're totally fine. And it's going to be a copy of Vjom and a Cubic Karma. That's weird. That's a weird hand. Okay, so we're just going to set the copy of Vjom on the field, and sometimes you will get hands like this that you just kind of got to play defensively and throw the copy of Vjom in defense that cannot be destroyed by battle. If your opponent can't out this, it's just going to have 0 attack and defense, so it's just going to kind of sit there. It can't be destroyed by battle, which is really cool, so they're going to have to remove it with a different effect or negate its effect and then swing through it, which is kind of weird. But so we're going to go ahead and draw into the next turn, and hopefully we're going to get a copy of Crimson Nova, and we're going to get Foolish Burial Goods, which right there we have him. So let's go ahead and use Foolish Burial Goods, send a copy of Cubic Karma, which we only have 1 Cubic Karma left in the deck because we have 2 of them in the hand, oddly enough. So we're going to go ahead and send our copy of Cubic Karma. We already have the complete OTK, and we're going to make him huge, and I'm going to show you how. So we're going to banish this card from the grave, and we're going to actually add our copy of Crimson Nova to our hand. This is something that I rarely do, but it does come up every so often. So we're going to reveal Endora Doom, Cubic Wave, and Karma, and since we have the copy of the V-Jom on the field, our opponent probably had something in attack position and tried to swing, so we're going to summon out the copy of Crimson Nova to our side of the field. Now once you do summon that copy of Crimson Nova, you can actually activate your copy of Karma, and when this card is activated, you can target a cubic monster that you control, except a copy of V-Jom, and send any number of V-Joms from your hand or deck to the graveyard. Then that monster gains 800 attack for each. So we're going to go ahead and send from our deck to the graveyard 2 copies of V-Jom. So we're going to send 1 V-Jom, and we're going to send a second V-Jom, which is right here, to the graveyard, and we're going to boost him by 1,600 attack points, boosting him up to about 4,600. So this card is sitting at 46. We can then use the effect of Cubic Wave to be able to double his attack and half another monster's attack points, which is really good to be able to do. And I love that about this card, that you can actually do that with this particular card. Now the cool thing about Cubic Wave is it reads that you can target a cubic monster you control, and one monster face-up monster opponent controls, and then your monster becomes double its attack, and if it does, the attack of that opponent's monster is halved in its current attack. And you can also manage card from the graveyard and any number of cubic cards from the grave, and then target face-up cards that your opponent controls equal to the number of those banished cubic monsters and place cubic counters on them. And this card is also not once per turn, which is just funny. So this card is going to get huge. So it's at 46. So we're going to do 6 and 6 is 12 plus 4 is 8,000. So it's at 96. So we're just going to activate a second one. And we're going to double his attack again, which is just really cool because it's not the original attack, it's just the attack points. So we're going to double his attack again, and he's going to go almost to 12,000. Actually goes to 12,000 because 9 and 9 is 18, and then 6 and 6 is 12 again. So actually he was at 46 to begin with. So 6 and 6 is 12. He would be at 92. And then we would go up again, which would be 9, 18, he'd be at 18,400. This card would be at 18,400, which is just insane that this card is at 18,000, which we're just going to put these two together for 8. And then we're going to put this for 400. So he's at 18,400. That is insane to just think that this card got that big, if my math is correct. Regardless, he's at big number. And we can just swing from there, which is just really cool. The copy of Cubic Karma would actually stay on the field, but this card is just really big and can attack twice. So we're just going to swing once and then swing a second time to be able to just win the game right there, and we pretty much have game. And then we also do 3,000 points of burn damage if it matters, to be able to just go in for game. If our opponent left literally any monster in attack position, we win, because we just swing through that monster, and then if they don't lose there, which they probably would, you just swing through another one. And we didn't even really activate any monster effects for them to negate. We just activated the copies of Cubic Wave, which sure, you can negate the first one, but I had to. So we're just going to activate the second one and just go in for game. So let's go ahead and see what we can do for the next one. Even see with the bad weird hands. With the weird bad hands that you can get, you can still pull off like an almost 20,000 attack point Crimson Nova. So let's go ahead and do one more and see what we can do for one last test hand. As you guys can see, this deck is super simple to be able to play. So let's go ahead and do a going second test hand and see what we can do for a going second hand. So we're going to shuffle it up and see what we can do. So we're going to go ahead and draw, and we're going to draw into a copy of our Karma, a copy of V-Jom, a copy of Ascension, Lightning Storm, and Karma. So if we're going second, we're also going to draw into a Foolish Burial Good. So we have literally everything we need to OTK with this hand, which is amazing. So what we're going to do is we're going to activate the copy of Lightning Storm right out of the gate. We're going to destroy our opponent's monsters, and we're just going to activate Lightning Storm right out and just destroy all the monsters that are in attack position. Then we're going to activate our copy of Foolish Burial Goods. Foolish Burial Goods is good, and we're going to go ahead and send from our deck to the graveyard a copy of Cubic Karma. Now, normally I would activate the effect of Cubic Karma to be able to grab a copy of Duza, but We do have 2 copies of Cubic Karma in our hand, so that's a little bit unfortunate. If we only had 1, we could still pull off the crazy play with Duza, but we have 2 in the hand, so we're just going to immediately go for Crimson Nova, because we could normal summon 1, banish a copy of Cubic Karma, and then grab another copy, and we would be basically grab Duza, normal summon Duza, send another one of these, banish it, grab this, and then reveal 3 names in hand, which would be these 3, special summon it would give us 2 monsters on the field, just to give us a little bit more attack power. But we don't really need it because we have Crimson Nova. So what we're going to do now is reveal our 3 in our hand, and we're going to special summon out our copy of Crimson Nova, activate the copy of the Karma. Karma is going to go off, and our copy of our, we're actually going to send from our deck to the graveyard a copy of Vjam and another copy of Vjam, and we do have a Vjam in the hand, but we can send from the hand, which is pretty cool. So we're going to send all 3 to the graveyard, and then once you send all 3 Vjams, he goes up by a grand total of 2,400, boosting him up to 54, which is usually what I get him to. I usually don't have to summon the Vjam to the field, so we're going to have this card at 54, swing once, swing twice. If they only had 1 monster, well, they wouldn't have a monster on the field, because we Lightning Storm them usually. So we're just going to swing directly once, and they'll go down to like 2,600, and then we'll in turn, and then they'll take 3k and we win, which is just hilarious. Like, it's that easy. Like, it's really easy to be able to play this deck, which is amazing. And I love playing Cubics. Like, it's super fun to be able to just do super simple plays. Like, a lot of decks are just make this really crazy board and just go in for like try and let your opponent break the board. But this deck is simple. You just make Baguska pass, and then once you Baguska pass, then you go for Crimson Nova on the following turn, and you just win the game. Like, this card is that insane. This card is that insane. It is that easy to summon to your side of the field, and it's just crazy. When I first read this card, I was like, this deck is going to be meta. Then it didn't get the support that I thought it was going to get. And then this deck I really do think, like, with a couple of waves of support, like with a really good wave of support, this deck could be really insane because of this card. If you had like more names that you could actually normal summon, like this deck only has like 2 normal summons in it, which is weird. But if you had more ways to like get Karma to the graveyard, get this card on your side of the field, and just get this card to OTK, or have a good starting play with like going first besides Baguska Pass, this deck would be insane. And I really think that this deck is super fun. So I think that's going to do it for this one, guys. If you guys would like to check out the deck profile, as always, it is down in the description down below. And this deck is super fun to be able to play. If you guys have never played Cubics before, I highly recommend it because it's just a really, really fun deck. So that's going to do it for this one, guys. Don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, hit the bell on there so you can become part of Notification Squad, and we'll see you guys in the next video. See you later, guys.